So yeah, thanks for having me, giving me the opportunity to speak. I've been working with Laravel for about half a year now. Started in last June. I'm 1/4 of the cloud infrastructure team. So I don't work with Laravel code at all in my daily job, actually. I mostly write Go and Terraform. So don't ask me about the cloud web application too much. I, of course, know a bit about it and stuff that I will show you now, but I'm not the one developing that. I do know a lot about Laravel, though. I've been a web developer myself before I went into infrastructure. I actually still have a Laravel application running that the customer never wanted to update. That's, I think, on version 3.4 or something. So, way back. Yeah, that's actually all of my slides. Let's just jump into the demo itself. I need my notes. Yep. I mean, makes sense, right? Here we are. Okay. Let's just start with a new Laravel application. I hope the internet is very fast here. Seems to work. Yeah, sure. SQLite is fine. Run the migrations. That's local anyway. We want to deploy it to cloud, so we don't care about the local stuff. Let's make a Git repo out of it. Add everything. Committed. And I hope I already created the remote. Let's see. Oh, thanks. Oh, now I probably have 2 remotes. Let's get rid of this one and do that again. Okay, let's see if we can push. Looks good. Excellent. All right, so we have our project up on GitHub. I already created the connection to GitHub here in Laravel Cloud. We also support GitLab and Bitbucket at the moment. There will be others in the future, but those are the main 3 that we have at the moment. So let's create a new application. I gotta add this to my allowed repos. There we go. The neat thing is this all works with reverb. So we have got WebSocket connections that immediately update the front end whenever anything happens. So my repo that I just added at GitHub sent a webhook to Laravel Cloud and it'll show up here. It's all instant. We do have 2 regions now. We used to have only 1. Since today we have London as well. At launch, we'll have EU regions, maybe Switzerland, we'll see. Probably some APAC regions and more in the US. It's based on AWS, so wherever AWS has most of their services, we're probably gonna be able to offer your application to run. Also depends a bit on the services you need, but the main Laravel Cloud application will be able to deploy everywhere. We'll just use East for this. So this just created an application. We can see it's selected the main branch here. We'll just deploy. There's no setup for like a basic Laravel application. It should, hopefully, deploy in under a minute. That's our main goal. Of course, if you got a lot of setup code running, like in your big migration or a lot of npm stuff, it can be a bit longer. But like a basic Laravel application that I did just now, it should be under a minute. Seems to be pretty fast. Yeah. So first it builds a container actually, and then the second step, the deploy step, will push the container into a Kubernetes cluster, and here we go. Was 34 seconds, good one. And we can, wait, we need the right window, here we are. That's our application. It runs on a Laravel Cloud domain. Can you see that? It's a bit small. So whatever you push, you'll get a Laravel Cloud domain with it. It'll also have your application name and your environment or branch name in it, and then just a random string. Of course, you can connect your own custom domains to it, but just to have a quick view or to have a branch preview page, you'll always get a Laravel Cloud domain and easily, immediately after 30 seconds, have your application up and running. Now, we don't need that one actually. Let's add a database to it because just an application is a bit boring. Let's install Jetstream. It should be in my history somewhere. Yep. Oh no. Oh. Yeah, wrong command. Let's just type it in. Yep. Right, I'll just take that as an example because, yeah, it requires a database, and I don't want to write code actually live here because that won't work out at all. New database migrations. Again, this just runs locally on the SQLite file. Then we need npm install and npm run build. Why? Why doesn't it find npm? See, never do live coding. Maybe Herd has a problem with the site. It should be running. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know what the problem is here. I'll just show you what I would have done anyway. So here in my application, if I go to settings, you can see some resources here. And at the moment, we're offering databases and caches. Caches is just Redis compatible. And we'll have object storage very shortly, like S3 compatible object storage. Let's create a new database. We do have, oh, that's an old one. Let's create a new one. We do have Postgres at the moment. At launch, we'll have MySQL as well. Postgres is very fast, as you can see. It's already done. And if I click Save and Deploy now, I'll immediately be able to use that database, because what we're doing is go back to settings and scroll down to your environment variables. We're injecting everything that you need for your database. So you don't have to set anything up. We'll just inject the variables. So my database connection, once my application runs on cloud, will be PostgreSQL in this case. Locally, it's still SQLite, and it'll inject the password and all the credentials and everything. And you can also connect to this database from the outside if you want, with Table Plus or whatever. But while running on cloud, it'll all be provided for you, and it's as easy as just clicking deploy and using it. Sadly, I can't demo it now because Jetstream won't work, but trust me, the database is there and we can use it. Yeah, what about your deployment? So we got push to deploy, that's activated by default. You can, of course, switch it off, but I think it's very convenient. Whenever you push to the branch that's connected to your environment, you'll get a new deployment. We also got a deploy hook, where you can sort of use this URL in your CI/CD pipelines to trigger a deployment. You can actually also give it a commit hash to deploy not the latest commit, but whatever commit you want. So it's pretty flexible. You got build commands here. In this case, composer install node-f is just the default that we provide, but you can do whatever you want here. Same with your front-end build commands. These are commented out because I didn't have anything in there at the moment where it was deployed. And then the deploy commands, they run after your build step, before your application actually starts. And in this case, we've got just PHP artisan migrate force in here, but you can do basically whatever you like. It's like a bash script that you can run besides your application. We offer multiple environments. So each application can have, like, you can have your main branch as a production environment and then select another branch. I only have main now, and do a dev environment if you want to. And that'll be a completely new separate instance of your application. So you can choose another PHP version for that instance. You can use another Node version. Any setting you do here will not influence anything on the other one. And when you deploy your other environment, you get a new URL as well. So they are completely separated out and can be, as I said, connected to different branches, always push to deploy. So you can have like your staging and your production environment in one application, and it'll all work separate from each other. And you can also choose the size of your, let's reset that. Choose the size of your instance. Maybe your dev environment can run on a really small one. These instance sizes are not fixed yet, so what you see here might change until we actually release it, but this is what we have right now. So your dev or your staging can run on a really small one, and maybe your production environment runs on a big instance. What you can also do is seamlessly scale up. So I can say this application should run on one replica, and if there's a lot of traffic, you can scale up to 4 replicas, and it'll just automatically load balance between those instances of your application, so you can push a lot of traffic through. Of course, you can also say just run 4 replicas all of the time, so there's auto scaling built in. Of course, you can activate the Laravel scheduler. You can create background processes, for instance, a queue worker. Just add it to your application, or you can have a custom worker with whatever command you want, maybe the Nightwatch agent or whatever you can think of. If you don't want your background workers running in the same instance, you can also deploy a separate instance alongside of your web instance, and have, for instance, a queue worker instance with maybe you need a lot of power for that, and have it like scale to 5 instances and run multiple queues in there. So it's a really flexible system to separate out your web traffic from your background tasks. Let's see. Right, domains. As you can see, in this case we have set HR, which is the application name, and dev is the environment I just created, and then just a random string on Laravel Cloud. You can add your own domain, which we will add to your environment and route all the traffic via the domain, and then you can disable this domain if you don't need it. You can have both of them if you want. They are sent out, I think, with a header that prevents Google from indexing it, so you can just leave it on. But if you choose to, you can just use your custom domain, for instance, for a production environment, and disable this Laravel Cloud domain here. What else is there to show? Of course, you've got logs. I don't have a lot of stuff in here right now. Let's maybe switch to another. It's probably not enough traffic on my. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So these are your application logs, your typical what you would have in your storage Laravel.log file. We just override via the framework. There's a setting in the framework that detects if it's running on Laravel Cloud and will override your logging driver and send everything to our cloud infrastructure where it's searchable and indexed, and you can extend that and get more information. You also have access logs, of course, to see what, there was no traffic on this one, to see who was accessing your application, if there were any errors. And, I think that was here, yeah. Of course, on your web instance, we support Octane as a runtime. So if you don't want to use PHP FPM, but use Octane as a long-running process to get higher throughput, you just enable it here. It'll install all the packages that you need, and given your application is compatible with this other paradigm of running PHP applications, it'll just work, and it's really a lot faster than traditional PHP FPM. It just uses a bit more memory, but that's a good trade-off, I think. We also have Hibernation. So I showed you that you can auto-scale your application from one replica to however many you like if there's a lot of traffic coming in. But if you enable Hibernation, it'll scale down to 0. So you can set a timeout here. This one is set to 1 minute just for testing purposes. Probably makes more sense to set it, I don't know, to an hour or 2 hours. And for instance, your staging environment can just scale down to 0. You won't pay any cents until the first worker comes back to the office in the morning and requests a website. Then it takes about 8 seconds to start up your application, and then it'll run until the timer runs out again, which is a really nice way. You could also think about your hobby projects. If you set it up on Laravel Cloud, just have it hibernate, and whenever you work on it or your friends want to see it, it'll be up. And once, I don't know, 15 minutes went by and nobody requested, it'll just shut down and it'll stop costing you any money, which is a really nice way to host stuff without breaking the bank, so to speak. We also recently added resource metrics, so you can see what your databases and caches do. For instance, you can see CPU and writes and storage. I think on caches you have hit or miss metrics, throughput, cache size, and so on. So we might reshuffle that and have a whole metrics page. But yeah, the data is there and you can see it. Also for applications themselves, if you go into an environment, you'll see CPU and memory here. So if you got a lot of traffic, it'll go up. We'll probably add traffic as well, because that's a metric that most of you will care about, how many requests per second, how much data was sent out, and so forth. But yeah, that's still work in progress. These are the metrics that we have at the moment. One very cool thing that we added last week, I think, is commands. So you can run one-off commands in your application right from here. So this is, for instance, PHP artisan route list that lists everything I have in this application, but it's basically a bash prompt, so I can run whatever I want in here, and it'll be executed on the container that runs my application. So if I wanna delete my application, it'll do that. I mean, yeah, it'll be gone now. I don't think it runs anymore. No. You'll just have to redeploy, and then it'll be okay again. But yeah, this is basically a bash command prompt that you can run directly from our cloud web application. And I think that's really handy for instance, one-off migrations or small commands or ingesting data and stuff like that. It's not meant for long-running commands, so we'll cancel everything that's longer than 15 minutes, I think, at the moment. So it'll just time out and fail. But you've got the background workers for that, so you can just start it as a background process in your web instance or create a worker instance. But for smaller one-off commands, this is really handy, I think, and it works really well. I think that's about all that I can show you at the moment. As most of you probably know, Laracon EU is coming up next week. Taylor has a talk in the afternoon on the first day. He will announce the launch date for Laravel Cloud, which is upcoming. So far, we already started with like a limited early access program with a few customers. There's like a few hundred that are already using the platform. If you want to sign up, go to cloudlaravel.com. But yeah, be assured very soon you'll all be able to get access to the real production version when we release it. And yeah, as I said. Are there any questions?
The command thing is nice, but like, do you intend to also allow something like Tinker to work, like in there?
We don't have interactive commands at the moment because it's more of a fire off this command, get the output and send it back. So it'll be a bit harder to do that. We do have a pretty cool POC by my colleague Sylvester. He did a sort of first version of a proof of concept where you could actually just SSH to Laravel Cloud and then get a menu of your applications and have an actual bash prompt in your terminal. I hope we get to build that. It's not quite clear yet if we will, but I would like to have it. It would be really cool, but yeah. Until then, we've got the commands feature in the web interface, which is pretty nice as well, I think.
Cool, thank you. Second question, like with how does the Hibernation work in regards to having like multiple instances? Like, can I just set up, I want to have 5 instances parallel and they will boot up all 5 when it wakes up from hibernation?
Yeah.
And can't I like do it like so it would turn on more instances as the load kind of increases?
Yeah, sure. So if you configure your web instance like this slider here, it has it's basically 2 sliders. So you've got the lower one here and the upper one here. So you could say always run 3, scale up to 5 if there's a lot of traffic. We're probably gonna have a broader range of replicas here. It's just 1 to 5 at the moment. It might be on different tiers of your user account. I'm not sure yet. It's yet to be decided. But in
never
theory,
have to think about load balancing whatsoever.
Nothing. Load balancing, 0 downtime deployment. So we're actually, if you click deploy and we start a new container, we check a health URL that we inject that checks if the web server works, PHP works, Laravel boots up. We don't check your app because it could be that it 500s because of a coding error and you want to see that then. But we check, like, basically, is everything working under the hood? And then we switch over the traffic. So it's always going to be 0 downtime no matter what. We might offer like a custom health check URL in the future. So you could say like the Laravel up route, or you create your own that also checks some background processes are up. And then you can inject that. So we check it and only bring traffic over if that returns 200. We'll see. That's a feature we're thinking about.
Cool, thank you.
So, ich habe ein paar Fragen.
Go ahead. We got time, I think, yeah.
Okay. In Laravel Forge, I have the concern that there are all root SSH keys available. So Laravel Forge has access to every server, except you cut that you say, okay, you just use it for setup, and afterwards you just use it like that. Here it's just like the same, or you have a server with AWS. Do you also have access to it? Obviously.
I mean, a few people will have, yeah, me included, yes. But I mean, that's the thing with hosted environments, right? Forge is still a bring your own infrastructure service. So yeah, in theory, you can just use it for setup and disconnect it afterwards and exchange the SSH keys. But then you won't be able to use any of the further management that you can do. Laravel Cloud is like, you don't even bring your own infrastructure. We provide everything. Give us your repo, we'll give you a URL. That's it, and we take care of all the rest. So it's a different segment of users, I think, because there are a lot of developers that don't want to think about infrastructure at all. They just don't care. They want to write their application and deploy it as quickly and as stable as possible. That's for them. And there's companies that like agencies, you know, that have a staff of developers, but they don't want to have a team of infrastructure engineers as well. So that's geared towards them. People that want to be more involved with their infrastructure can use Forge, where you still have to care about maybe updating your infrastructure, backing it up, and that sort of stuff. If you're uncomfortable with that, then run your own stuff without any of those. Laravel will still run on this forever as well, so no problem
Okay.
there.
You mentioned you have a database and Redis, but you don't know exactly the requirements for every application. So, for instance, someone wants TypeSense, the next one needs Gutenberg, the next one needs something else. How do you handle this one?
Well, it's probably going to come down to what people require, and we'll just add it, you know. Yeah, we don't know what everyone needs now at the moment. We're going to launch with like a broad thing that sort of satisfies most of the developers. But in the long run, there's going to be more integrations directly. There's probably going to be something like a marketplace where you can connect third-party services really easily in the web interface. So we're going to build it out over time, but that's going to be an ongoing process. We have to launch with a set of features now. As I said before, if you talk to us engineers, we're never going to launch at all because there's always going to be something to add, always going to be something to optimize. So there's a launch date that is set and a set of features that we're going to launch with. And there's already ideas for years and years of work. So we're not going to stop adding new stuff.
Okay. Do you know something about the pricing model already?
No, I'm sorry, because that's out of my hands, basically. That's in the hands of our product manager and marketing. They're setting the prices. We're going to have a pretty cheap, like sandbox or hobby tier or whatever, probably with like reduced feature sets. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you won't be able to connect your custom domain, but you can like create small apps, and you won't pay like a monthly fee, but only pay usage for your CPU and your database. But they can both hibernate, so it will only cost you once you actually access it. And then there will be other tiers like a, I don't know, a pro and an enterprise tier and whatever. But specifics I can't tell you yet. It'll be pretty competitive. We want to have like really low cost stuff for people to just put their hobby projects on there, and new web developers to actually don't go into JavaScript, use PHP, use Laravel and deploy it here, and it'll cost you like almost nothing. And that's the way we hope we can sort of get into that segment of the market.
So basically like a Heroku.
Sort of, but they are pretty expensive. So we're gonna be below that.
Okay, last question from my side. You can have multiple replicas, instances, and you have the deploy commands like database migration. Do you run them on every replica, or do you really
No.
run them once, and how
That's actually, if you got deploy commands like database migrations, it'll start up a container, run those, and then tear it down, and then start your web instance or worker instances. So it'll sort of it runs in your code, but not in the instance that serves your web traffic. So it'll only run once, and then it starts your application or the rest of your application.
Thanks.
Thanks for that last question, because that brings me to my follow-up. What happens if the migration crashes?
You get an error message in your deployment output. It's a red screen where you can see what's the log output of the error. And you
Then
can
it
fix
reverts to the old version, because you mentioned zero downtime deployments.
At that point, if it fails, it will never have adjusted the traffic to it. So your deployment just failed. The old one is still running. You can fix your mistake and click on redeploy, and it'll bring up the new version.
Okay, speaking of mistakes, you mentioned backups. How does Laravel Cloud handle backups, or is that still left to good old Spatier packages?
Your code doesn't have to be backed up because it's in a Git
sure.
repo somewhere. The databases will, so Postgres and MySQL at launch will support point-in-time recovery. So you can just say, give me the state of the database at that point in time. Probably, I don't know, for a specific time frame, like 3 weeks back or whatever. I don't know yet. But yeah, we will definitely support that. For Redis cache, I'm actually not sure if there's anything planned, because it's sort of doesn't matter.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you don't. Who uses Redis to persist stuff, right? So, I mean, you could, but it's a bit senseless. So yeah, databases will support it, and it's already being worked on. It'll be integrated in the web application where you can just select whatever point you want to go back to.
Thanks, sorry.
Would make sense. I'd have to inquire with the web team what's planned there, because yeah, probably something like snapshots as well, or something like that. Yeah.
That would be really good.
Do I still need to care about my own CI, my tests? Where do they run?
You can run them in your deploy commands if you want to, but the way we've got most of our projects that we deploy to cloud continuously set up is that you run it in like GitHub Actions, and as the last step, when the commit is done, it'll deploy to cloud when everything was.
So that's the
green.
recommended way, but you could run a 20-minute testing run.
If you want to start the PHP artisan test in your deploy commands, if you want to.
Okay.
There's no restriction there.
I have a follow-up on that one. Wait.
Wait, just one small question. Can I still pale or tail follow the logs outside of this web interface somehow, because there is no SSH at the moment?
No.
No. Because Taylor promised SSH access at the very beginning.
Yeah, well, we'd like to offer that, and once you can actually SSH in, you'll be able to run whatever you want, of course, yeah. But at the moment, the logs are not stored in your application container. They're actually stored in a OpenSearch. It's similar to Elasticsearch. It's a big cluster where your logs are stored and indexed and searchable. And then we did display them here. I'd like to. There was at one point, so the first idea with Laravel Cloud was actually just PHP Artisan Cloud deploy or something like that, or deploy cloud or whatever. The idea of a web interface came a bit later, but I'm pretty sure we're going to go back to the idea of a CLI interface, and that might have the ability to just stream your logs, because technology is there to do that. You just need like a client on your local machine. So yeah, possible.
I had a follow-up. I also thought about the testing thing, but you showed the hooks. So therefore, I would just disable auto-deployment.
That's what they're basically, that was the idea for it, yeah.
Run the pipeline, and then if it succeeded, then just call the hook.
Yeah, if everything's green, trigger a deployment, and that's it.
I have a question. something I always wished I had was like I make a pull request and the pull request gets a live preview. Is this something you're
Yeah,
working on or
definitely.
planned? Okay.
It's probably not going to be there
For
at
start.
launch, but preview deployments that are automatically set up to Hibernate or whatever. So what we want to do is, so at the moment, if you authorize your GitHub repo, we install a GitHub application that has access. And the GitHub application will just comment on your pull request with a URL. So whenever you make a PR, you'll have a comment with the URL where you can click on it and send it to customers or whatever and see that PR. And whenever the PR is closed and the branch is deleted, we'll tear down the environment or something like that. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Any more questions?
Last one. How to access database?
Sorry?
How to access database?
You can just basically, wait, let me reset that. You can view the credentials here and just use Table Plus or whatever you want and access them. So so we've got these pg.laravel cloud domains here for the Postgres ones. There will be MySQL ones as well. The plan right now is to have MySQL databases be either public or private, so you can choose when you set them up. And if they're private and you still want to connect to them, you can sort of temporarily access them with a key, or I'm not sure yet what the exact way will be, but there will always be a way for you to connect from your own client to the database in the cloud. And then, yeah, if it's private and you disconnect, it'll tear down that connection again, and it will just be internal.
Any more questions?
Go ahead.
Maybe a stupid question. I've never used Laravel,
No
so the
stupid
question
questions.
comes up: can I deploy any PHP-based stuff, or is it somewhere tied to Laravel?
In
exactly?
theory, yes. Nuno, I think, got WordPress to run on it at one point. At the moment, it's restricted to Laravel and even more restricted to like the versions we support, because we got like, do we have PHP 8.2 to 8.4? So I think it's down to Laravel 8 that we support right now, and it also detects if your version is compatible. In the future, yes, you'll be able to run a whole load of other stuff on Laravel Cloud that's not Laravel or might not even be PHP specific.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, one small. You said Redis compatible.
Yeah.
Does it support tags?
It's everything that Redis can do, but you're legally not allowed to host Redis without having a license with them, which doesn't make sense because there are open source alternatives. So yes, it's basically Redis. It's just for legalese reasons, it's Redis
So
compatible.
it's not that known alternative. What's the name?
Valkey, there's a lot of different ones, but yeah, it's basically, it supports everything that Redis can.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
How can I get some extra Packle extensions or extra CLI tools into the container?
So we thought about this quite a bit. So at the moment, we just looked at what Forge users, and there's like a whole lot of them, so we've got a lot of data, what the packages, the list of packages is, or extensions in PHP that most of them use, and we just took those and added a few. So it's static at the moment because we want to sort of control our base image size. I think it makes sense in the future to give you the opportunity to just say, please create an image for my application that also has these extensions built in, and then we'll probably sort of create an image, a base image for your application that has that. Because we tried out just having it dynamically where you can just select a few applications or a few extensions, but then the deploy time goes up to like 5 minutes or stuff. So we want to keep it lean and fast. So at the moment, you'll be able to run a lot of stuff or basically all of the stuff. But if you need, I don't know, Oracle DB driver, you'll probably have to wait a bit until we implement a more flexible model.
Any more questions?
Talking about the object storage, will you be able to add the domain also to the object storage? Because that's
So you
for
can
us,
serve
for
stuff
example, it's
directly from object storage to the web.
no.
Like basically
No,
an assets.domain.com.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because
HTTP access to your object storage, not through your
through the
Laravel
domain.
application.
through your own domain.
Yeah,
Because
I'm not sure.
because the use case is with some clients we need to be white labeled on the domain level, and if the object storage has like a generic URL, it will not be whitelisted from the client. So we'll not whitelist, for example, DigitalOcean something.
I think object storage is sort of in development, is probably already deployed on dev, but this is production, so it's not here yet. Probably at the moment it'll just be like these domains, right? It'll be an object.laravel.cloud, and yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Jeremy, my colleague who's working on that feature at the moment. I don't know.
No more questions? I have one last question. Do you deploy Laravel Cloud using Laravel Cloud?
The web application actually runs on Vapor. It was just we did at the start, but we sort of stepped on each other's toes all the time because we were developing the infrastructure and the web team was developing the web application, and then stuff breaks on either side and suddenly nobody can work anymore. So we moved it to Vapor and it was just convenient, so we kept doing it. And it's sort of the web application, it works well on Vapor because you can sort of infinitely scale. And the main source of truth behind it is just a really big RDS database that we can set up in multiple availability zones. And this is our single source of truth. So all of our Kubernetes clusters, so we've got a cluster for the build service and then multiple customer clusters in each region. And they are pretty dumb. So if we set up a new cluster, it'll just install everything that we need, like the login collector and our monitoring, and then a custom built app operator that receives SQS messages from the web app, and then talks to the web app's API and says, hey, I've received a deployment request for this UUID. Always good to use those. And it'll give the app operator all the information about the application, like the instance size and the replica size and everything. And then the application gets deployed, and we tested it. We can delete a whole customer cluster and set it up again, and it'll re-register with the web application and deploy everything that should be running there, but wasn't because it's a new cluster. And so we've got a really robust way of restoring in worst case scenarios, which shouldn't happen unless AWS does something really strange and messes up in a big time. But yeah, so the web application is our single source of truth, or the database behind it, and everything else is sort of tucked onto that to be able to really control it from one point. We actually do use Laravel Nova here as well to sort of have our own internal admin interface and connect new clusters, add new regions, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're using a lot of Laravel's own already built infrastructure and packages to run Laravel Cloud. And the stack for the web application is React and Inertia, by the way.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Florian. And as you